Yeah. What's popping? What's going on? You're back in the lab with your man Mark Nash. He is I am he. Another great episode of Breaking Beats. Got my homeboy, that guy Eclipse, in the building with me. What up, Clips?
What's happening, Nash? How you doing, my brother?
Oh man, all is good, man. I'm blessed, happy to be here. Another great episode, man. We got a couple of topics on the docket, man. You ready to chop it up?
Yes, sir. Let's go ahead and get the cooking.
Man, so look, over the weekend, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. defended, well, unsuccessfully attempted to defend his title against Mark Magsayo. Congratulations to Mark Magsayo, who is the new featherweight champion. That's 126 pounds in boxing. Mr. Gary Russell Jr. was not able to defend the title. Going into the fight, he said he had an injury. He didn't tell us what the injury was, but he did say he had an injury. He missed weight on the first attempt, came in about a half a pound over. He was 126 and a half. Missed weight, came back an hour later. He was a pound under. Unfortunately, Mr. Gary Russell further injured his arm, his right arm, which is his lead hand, his jab hand, somewhere in the fourth or fifth round. And from there on, the jab was gone. He had lost a key weapon in this fight. Now, Clips, a lot of people out here are saying, hey, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. lost fair and square. Lost fair and square. I took a survey on the chat. We had 339 votes. Out of 339 votes, 86% said Maseo won, Gary lost. And if you add up that fourth total right there, that's 90%. That's Gary lost, but can win a rematch. So 90% out of 339 votes said Mr. Gary Russell lost his title. But there is a contingency growing out there saying Mr. Gary Russell got robbed. Yeah, you heard me right, y'all. They saying Gary got robbed.
I want to hear that.
No, I don't think Gary got robbed. But we're gonna talk about it. Clips, what is your assessment of the fight? What did you think of the fight when you saw it, my G?
Well, it was a great fight. Shout out to Mark Magsayo, bringing it home for the Philippines, and shout out to Mr. Gary Russell Jr. for putting on a great performance. All things considering, my immediate takeaway when I watched the fight was by round three, it looked like Mark Magsayo is a little inexperienced and wasn't used to the type of lateral movement and head movement that Gary Russell was doing, while Gary Russell knew exactly what Mark Magsayo was trying to do. And I said it a couple times. I really do think that if he had both hands working, this would be interesting because he was able to just pop and hit Mark anytime he really wanted to with that left hand. He just didn't throw it enough. And when you look at the size difference of them, nothing against Mark Magsayo, but he probably should have put this one away sooner. There was a very considerable size difference when they actually were in the ring. Um, we're gonna get the pause meter going. Mark is bigger and longer. Pause.
Whoa.
And it just seems yeah, it just seemed like his inexperience kept Gary in the fight to where I will say it was a loss, but I will 100% contend that if they ever have a rematch, Mark might be in trouble. And now that he's the champ, Mark's definitely got to watch film of this. And I fear for his title defenses because I saw some exploitable things in his fight, in his style of fighting.
Yeah, he definitely for lack I hate this is another thing that people overuse too much in boxing, got exposed. But I think he
Mm.
did get exposed as in things that he's missing in his toolbox, i.e., cutting off the ring. The guy only has one hand. He even mentioned that in the post fight. I saw he only had one hand. However, he wasn't able to exploit that 100%. And I think to win a fight only by one round against a one armed man is telling. What do you think of that?
Oh, it's very telling. And like I said, no shade to Mark, man. I give you all the flowers and glory, but even the commentators during the actual fight, they by round five or six, they just kept talking about why is he still moving towards Gary Russell's left hand? All right, if you're fighting a southpaw, you circle to your right to negate that left hand. You take it away from them. You see if you circle to your left, now you're right in the right in the kill zone for that left hand to come over. And Mark Magsayo he was just like it seemed like he just wanted to prove a point, or he just didn't get it. And it really blew my mind, especially some of those rounds that Gary Russell won, and he only threw like 15 punches. So if you just take away the fact that Mark was moving to his left hand, Gary Russell would have probably only hit him 3 times. And so that is very telling on Mark Magsayo. It's something that he's got a great team and great camp behind him. So they are hopefully they're watching tape and they're having a real conversation to him instead of just patting him on the back right now.
Mm. Now I got this punch stats right here. Let me share my screen so we can see what's going on. I want you to see these punch stats because this is the story of the fight.
I'm looking at these numbers. That's very telling. Like once again,
Let's share. Yeah, I'm
shout
sorry. Go
out
ahead.
to the shout out to the new champ. But yeah, those numbers don't lie, and those are very telling. It's like this technically should have probably been a 6th to 5th round knockout just off the numbers alone. But no, he just wasn't able to do it. And he was landing some good shots, but nothing that outside the one in the 4th round when Gary Russell claimed he hurt his arm. I didn't see no real punches from Magsayo that was like, oh, he hurt Gary. And so there's that, but I will not, and I am not going to sit here and act like the man got robbed. If he got robbed of anything, he kind of robbed himself. If you know that you're injured like that, it's not going to kill you. You've been out the ring this long. Go on and take some more time off. Worst case scenario, you would have fought Mark Magsayo in the summer or the fall, but
This
at
is it.
least you would have been 100%.
All right. So here we go. When you look at round one, and we don't have to go through this whole thing, but let's final punch stats though. Total punches to the body. Total. Look at the jabs thrown and landed. All right. But this, let's just look at these some of these total punches round by round. When you got a guy throwing right here, we're at the top right here. So he was 5 out of 41. Maceo's 11 out of 50. Now round two, 8 out of 38, 16 out of 68. Okay, so Mark Magsayo picked it up in the second round. Okay, he picked it up. He dropped down some in the third. Gary had a better round. Fourth, Gary had a decent round right there. Still throwing less though. Now, when you're throwing, when your opponent is landing double and then sometimes triple the amount of punches, it's hard not to what are we talking about here? One guy
Exactly.
round five, one guy landed 4 punches, one guy landed 20, one guy landed 7, 14. He doubled them and landed, doubled them and thrown. So the judges see the activity, but they also see him landing more. Now Gary might have landed some more flashier shots, clean looking shots, but yes, man, they're gonna count all of that. We got to count all of it. But what do you have to say about these punch stats?
They're very telling of the fight that I saw. Let's go. Let's look at round number 5 right there. You had the mouse over it. That tells it all. That man literally threw 5 times. I'm not exaggerating. He landed 5 times
No,
more
four.
punches.
Oh yeah, 5 times. Yeah, 5 times 4.
Yeah, he landed 5 times more punches than Gary Russell and threw double the amount of punches that Gary Russell threw, plus 3 extra punches. So if say you're a judge that's judging aggression, let's not look at what landed. If you're a judge that judges aggression and bringing the fight and gamesmanship, 25 thrown punches to 53 thrown punches, it's a no-brainer who won that round. And now let's look at the landing. 4 landed punches to 20 landed punches. So if you're a judge that's not judging none of the nuance things that that you can take into consideration when judging a boxing match. If you're just straight up and down judging for aggression and ring generalship, how can you not give that round to Mark Magsayo?
Mm. I, I, I don't see how they saying he got robbed, bro.
I mean, a lot of people don't like it. I mean, a lot, Gary Russell, a lot of people they love him. He was a great champion. He's still a great champion. And maybe people didn't want to see him go out like that. And that goes back to my point of I appreciate you for showing that you're a dog and wanting to get back into the ring and shake some ring rust off. But honestly, I would have felt more comfortable had I waited a few more months and I would have saw Gary Russell at 100% than Gary Russell. Because here's the thing: let's say Gary Russell won that fight, that still's got a whole, like, the numbers don't lie. There's a whole bunch of asterisks on it. And as much as you can make the excuse of, oh, well, he only had one arm, this wasn't like he hurt his arm in the fight. Out of his own mouth, he was hurt 2 weeks before the fight in training camp.
If anything, some
But
people could
like,
say Mark. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and then my last point was, and so that makes me really wonder, how rough has it been these 2 or so years you've been inactive, and how desperate were you to try to get that fight purse, regardless if you won or lost? That's what I'm
Okay.
feeling it really boiled down to.
Now I'm gonna tell you what's crazy right here. Now I got this official scorecard right here. Let's do this. Let's because I think people are gonna like this right here. We need to show these people what's going on. And let's do a quick graphic side by side. Now I'm gonna show you guys something, and I want you guys to see it. These are the rounds. Can you believe the judges gave? I got to go back and watch it, but they gave Gary round 5, and Mark Magsayo landed 5 times the amount of punches. He doubled them in thrown and landed 5 times the amount.
I don't I don't know how you can explain that. I don't know how you can justify that. Uh, I don't care if those 4 shots that Gary Russell hit Mark Magsayo with were clean flush shots. I didn't see nothing that's really snapped Mark's head back. I didn't see Mark wobble. Like, the way you have to give that round to Gary Russell Jr. is if 2 or more of the 4 punches he landed wobbled and visibly hurt Mark Magsayo. I did not see that all fight. So I don't know
Mhm.
what Lynn Carter, Mark Costantino, or Henry Grant were smoking in the
Henry
Philippines,
Grant,
but it was
Henry
obviously
Grant gave
potent.
it. Henry Grant gave it to Magsayo.
Okay, Henry Grant was sober. Okay,
All right, so
the
let's go
mothers.
back to it. So let's look at some. Let's. I want to see what another one of these scores. Now, what's another round that's crazy like that? Round 12. No, no, no. Total punches.
16, round seven. Round seven's a good example.
Round 7. Now, who did they give? 16 to 51. Let's see who they gave round 7 to. Round 7. Okay, everybody gave that to Mark Magsayo. Now, how did he
Okay.
not? Okay, so he did win round 7. What about round 11? Gary landed 2 out of 17, 12 out of 40. Because Mark Magsayo was missing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see what they gave him round 11 to. Because no matter how you slice it, okay,
11 went to Magsayo.
11 went to Magsayo. Let's switch it back to here. Let's enlarge the screen a little more.
He landed 6 times more punches than Gary Russell Jr. and threw 40 punches when Gary Russell only threw 17. So he threw over double the amount of punches and
Let's see who they
landed
gave round 1 to. Who did they gave? Now here's the thing: they gave round 1 to Magsayo. Everybody unanimously gave round 1 to no. Round 1 went to score 10. Yeah, round 1. Yeah, everybody gave Magsayo round 1. Now round 1, Gary landed 5. He threw 41. Magsayo landed 50. Yeah, it was one in there where it looked like he caught Gary off balance too. Um, round 2, 8 of 38, 16 of 68. They gave Gary the round. Nope, they gave
No, they
Magsayo
gave it to
round 2.
Mateo round 2.
Okay. Then round
They gave
3.
him round. They gave Gary round 3.
And Gary landed 10 out of 33, 16 out of 45. Okay. Then two out of the three judges gave Gary round four. Let's see what round four was looking like. Round four, he got outthrown and outlanded. It's like some of these rounds, I'm like, how did you give him this round but not give him this round? Now, because see what happened there? They gave two out of the three judges gave Gary round four. But here's the thing: round five, y'all gave that to Gary. He threw four. He landed 4 out of 25. Marcel landed 20 out of 53 punches. Now I get it. It's professional boxing. We count effective aggressiveness, but bro, he landed 5 times the amount of punches. He threw double the amount.
It's
Two out.
it's hard. It's hard for me to really even try to play devil's advocate for Miss Carter or Mr. Constantino. I don't understand what they were thinking and what they. We all saw the same fight. Maybe they were giving the round to Gary because they were more frustrated and more focused on Masayo's lack of ring generalship and lack of accuracy. Because those were rounds where he was missing a lot. Those
Right.
were rounds where
Now, when he did get him, it was like he was holding in the clinches and throwing some little shots in there, or there was some little shots in there. Might have been jabs too. You get what I'm saying? He throwing jabs and
hmm
he's swinging in jabs, as you can see. But Mark Magsayo and like he was missing. He was definitely missing. Gary threw zero out
oh
of two
yeah.
jabs, but he threw 12, but missed all of them according to this. Threw 17 jabs, missed all of them. So 11 missed all of them. So Gary wasn't getting beat up and touched with a jab all night. He barely got hit with it. He didn't throw no jab, and he barely got hit with a jab. But
Jabs took the night off.
what do you say about that? Because some things Gary was doing, it was survival stuff. What do you feel about that?
hmm I feel 100% that I mean anybody who's watched boxing in the past 20 years, it looked like Gary was in survival mode. There were a couple rounds when in real time I was extremely frustrated because it seemed like Gary was content with just making it out the round and he was trying to do the old Archie Moore, went around without throwing a punch and it's like that's not happening. Then okay, Archie got that off one time. But that's not that in 2022, I don't think we're gonna give you that. And I really do. The best I could do to play devil's advocate for the judges is maybe they were just frustrated with Masayo's inability to close the deal, and so they
Right,
looked at some of these. They looked at them rounds like, oh man, you didn't even land a clean shot. You know what? I'm gonna give that to Gary because you had him, man. You terrible.
right. And Gary, you got to give now. I think Gary got a lot of credit for making him miss. That's why he only lost by 1 round. But some people wanted to see the champ
Yeah.
throw more punches. These jabs are the story of the round. He threw four. He threw two jabs in round four, threw one in round five, and from there he never threw the jab again. The jab is the most effective punch in boxing.
Yeah.
But on the flip
I
side of
mean,
that,
also,
look at this. He made his opponent miss his jabs, 4, 5, and 6. Then round 7, 8, and 9, his opponent did start landing his jab a little bit, but he's barely hitting him with a jab. Look at this. He's throwing power punches and missing.
yeah.
He's hitting some, but he's missing. So Gary did get him with some good power shots, them straight lefts. It was straight lefts all night for Gary. But you can't win a round only landing. You landed no jabs and you threw two straight lefts. I mean, you landed two straight lefts out of 17. We can't give you that round. The other guy hit you 10 more times.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm a huge Gary Russell Jr. fan, but I can't make the argument that he won, that he was robbed. I can only make the argument that man, his defense is great.
Oh, his
He did.
defense is mug, ain't it, bro?
Yeah,
The man got defense.
and man, it was amazing. Like I said, I really and I do believe what he said at the end of the fight. I believe that was true. He was like, I came in here with one arm and I gave this boy a boxing lesson. I definitely believe that that statement was true because that was a good boxing lesson. But you didn't win the fight, Gary.
All right. All right. So the final punch stats, the total. Like these things right here are telling, man. Jabs to the total jabs and body, power punches, the total punches. It's just you got to
Power
give
punches, total
credit.
power. Look at the landed total power punches. 58 to 140. He not only doubled it, he almost tripled the landed power punches of Gary Russell Jr. Wow.
Yeah, that's telling, man. Yeah, it wasn't a robber. Gary Russell just did good for a guy. He did great for. He did phenomenal for a guy with one hand. But robbery, when it comes to that, the topic of a robbery, my brother, my sister, wake up. It was no robbery.
Yeah.
Good fight.
Yeah, we got it. I mean, I think the boxing community we're a little jaded with all the the tomfoolery that goes on in the sport to where now we were a little fast and loose with terms like robbery and things like that. Like this wasn't a robbery, this was a loss. And and in many ways this was a more self-inflicted wound
Mm,
on Gary's part to where it's like, did Mark Magsayo beat Gary Russell Jr. or did Gary Russell Jr. make things that much harder for himself by that he's hurt? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. The past couple of years, it's been weird when certain fighters are a little too extravagant or a little too eccentric with their ring walks. It's just never it just never ends well.
mm. I didn't even think of it that way. I did not think of it that way.
Yeah, you're
Because
putting too
people,
much thought in your ring walk instead of your fight game. It reminded me too much of that Deontay Wilder shit, where
oh,
you got this crazy ring walk and you got all this thought that's going into it and all this symbolism and all this, and that's dope. You're trying to invoke the ancestors and do all that, and that's awesome. But you still got to get in the ring and fight that fight, man.
right. Okay, well,
Ain't
yes,
none of them, ain't none of them, ain't none of them, ain't none of them brothers taking off that turban and jumping in the ring for you, bro.
bro. That's a fact, though. That's a fact. Yeah, man. Look, I wish Mr. Gary Russell Jr. nothing but the best. But when you when you out there immediately after the fight saying you got robbed and you pushing this narrative that you won 10 rounds to two or maybe 9 rounds to three.
That's what he
I'm,
said.
yeah. You didn't hear it?
Outboxed him. Uh, I won 10 rounds to two, 9 rounds to three. I outboxed him. Uh, Hurt my arm. I knew my arm was hurt coming into the fight. I already stated that I had an injury coming in. I just didn't want to reveal what the injury was. Um, Caught a slight head bunt earlier in the fight, but small thing to a giant. I still believe that I outboxed him, outclassed him, outskilled him. At least, like I say, 9 rounds to three, 10 rounds to two, hands down.
Want to and realize that you know what, tonight wasn't your night. And with the AB thing, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You were inactive. You weren't letting your hands go, just like Gary Russell, just like T.O. And with T.O. and Gary Russell, you had pre existing injuries, which technically you should have postponed the fight and nobody would have faulted you for that. So for you to bring up that pre existing injury post fight, again, it just, I don't like it. I don't like it. That's like, that's like me, you got a rap battle on your show, and I'm talking all this trash all week. Yeah, I'm gonna go into the rap battle. I'm going to the rap battle, but I got nothing. I haven't got no bars prepared. I ain't got nothing. I don't even have the skills to just freestyle on whim and everything. And then when it's like, damn, Eclipse, you suck. It's like, oh well, I had a lot on my mind, man. It's hard for me to come up with some shit. Like, no, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, you had enough time to get yourself ready. And if you weren't ready within that time, you even had time to postpone, pull out, or do whatever you got to do. You got in that ring. It is what it is.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Did you have to go to a plan after the injury, like a plan B, plan C kind of thing?
Um, it wasn't even a plan B, plan C type thing. It was more so that I knew that my skill set was just much more superior than his. You know, he couldn't hit me. I was able to land my shots at will whenever I wanted to punch. I was able to control the real estate when I wanted to. If he wanted to fire any shot, I would slide in, smother him, take away any type of effective shot that he attempted to try to throw. My ring generalship and everything, my boxing IQ, it spoke for itself. I wonder what the fans got to say about this. I wonder what the fans got to say about what the judges are saying. You know, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the fans would disagree.
All right, go ahead. What you got to say about that?
Respectfully, Mr. Gary Russell Jr., you are tripping. Oh my man, I don't know if that's just a little pride talking, if that's him
Mm.
just trying to sell himself as a boxer, or if that is just delusion, if that is just somebody who just can't accept the fact that tonight wasn't your night. Hey, I've lost fights. Everybody's lost fights. And we could say 1,000 things. Oh yeah, I got headbutt. Blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I didn't like that sound bite. I like the sound bite where he was in the ring, where he was like, "Hey, I just wanted to show I'm a dog. It's okay. I'll be back." I was like, okay, just take your lumps and move on. And it seems like he got in the locker room, got to thinking about it, and I don't know if that was him being honest or if that was just his ego falling out of his face. I don't know what that was.
Let's hear this next part.
Surprised at the decision there. Of course, I was surprised at the decision. You know, I'm a warrior at the end of the day. I knew I had an injury. I refused to uh, postpone this fight after almost a 2-year layoff. I wanted to get back in there and display my skill set. I believe that I did so with one arm, with a tough opponent. And, like I say, 10 rounds 2, 9 rounds 3, hands down.
Yesterday, we talked about you never being 100% when you step into the ring. Mm-hmm. But do you regret now coming to the fight that injured, that compromised?
I don't regret it because I got an opportunity to show the fans what I can really truly do. I'm a real champion at the end of the day. I don't regret it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fans that's gonna be disappointed at the decision. In the way that the judges has called this thing. But it's also gonna be a lot of people that's gonna be like, "Hey, Gary is definitely the truth."
All right, there you go. I agree. Gary is
I
the truth.
highly disagree.
No, I agree. Gary is the truth, but he lost. He's the truth, but he lying right now saying 10 rounds to 2, 9 rounds to 3. No, it
Well,
wasn't that.
also he's lying when he said that. Well, he's not being accurate when he says, "I feel like I went into the ring and I showed the fans, what I can do." No, you didn't. You weren't at 100%.
He showed fans what he could do with one hand.
Right. It's one of those things. It's like when somebody's arguing with you and the point they're trying to argue is getting nullified by the other shit they're saying during the argument. To where it's like, if that's what really was on your mind, to get in there, show the fans what you can do. Listen, it's like out of your own mouth. It's been a close to 2-year layoff. A couple months isn't going to kill you, especially when you are 100% and you get in there and you can really show the fans what you can do. Because trust me, had you would have gave a Gary Russell Jr. performance that we're all used to seeing, nobody would have cared about a 2-year layoff. Nobody would have cared about a 2.5-year layoff. The only reason we talk about the layoff still is because you weren't at 100% and you're using the injury and the layoff as your justification for the results when the results are the results.
All right, well, look, we'll stay close to this story and see what happens with the future of the career with both guys, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. But again, congratulations to Mark Magsayo. Congratulations to the Philippines on the 27th anniversary of Manny Pacquiao. He did it. He brought another one back home to the country. But that's all we got on this one, man. We'll talk about this story more. But congratulations again to Mark Magsayo. Congratulations to Freddie Roach for making having another champion in the stable. Congratulations to Manny Pacquiao Promotions for having a champion in the stable, and congratulations to Mr. Gary Russell Jr. for defending his title. Even injured, did good for a guy with one arm. But nonetheless, he lost this fight. With that said, man, it's been another great episode of Breaking Beats, where we break down business, entertainment, art, technology, sports, And anything else you will not feel like squeezing into those letters. It's your man Mark Nash breaking beats. Peace.